town and its residents. Guide us, Lord, and everyone in this room. We just give you thanks. Amen. Now we'll call this workshop to order, and we'll go and do the pledge. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we'll have the clerk do the roll call, if you don't mind.
Mayor George David Thomas.
Here.
Councilmember Catherine Terry. Here. Councilmember Lonnie Harrell.
Here.
Councilmember Bill Coon.
Here.
And Attorney Brett is not here.
Yeah, we know.
Nine.
You're. Are you
He's
here?
here.
She's here, and Monica hopefully will show up shortly. Okay, additions, deletions, changes, and approval of the workshop agenda. If anybody wants to change it, it's just gonna be about what we had already discussed.
Make a motion to approve the agenda as is.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All in favor, say nay. Alrighty, since it's a workshop, we'll jump right into public comments. First off, open it up and see if there's any one who wanted to say anything for a couple minutes. But then I also want to give Todd, give you the first stab at it. So he's the twofold, the operator of record, is that right? Operator of record. And just I guess if we had questions from him or kind of his role or what twofold does, and if anyone does have questions, I'll have to come over and just see what everybody wants to know. Anybody got questions for Todd or anything?
No, at this moment.
Okay. And if not, it's up to you, Todd, but you want to give a brief description, kind of history, twofold, what y'all do there, just kind of orient the council with it.
Yeah, we've been coming to Fort White since the water plant started. I've been coming for over 25 years. And basically we were working for the town for many, many years. And when the county took it over, the county hired us to continue to do the same jobs we were already doing. So the county, and I know now it's transitioning to something else as well, but I sent you a list of kind of what we do. We kind of handle the water treatment plant operations at the plant. We pull the samples, send those into the lab, do the reports to DEP, and then anything that is requested of us, like we handle some flushing, we do the backflow testing, things that are requested from us by town. When y'all are doing it out of the county, we do. They handle all the meter reading, cutoffs, line locates, emergency call outs. They might call us for assistance on an emergency, and we're available, we can help with that. But they handle the majority of that. And I don't have that list in front of me, but I kind of sent that. So that's kind of the history. Been coming a long time, serving the town, and it's been a pleasure. But I was asked to come to the workshop, so I'm here to answer any questions y'all might have that I can help shed light on. But we work well with y'all, we work well with the county, either way, just doing the job with the water treatment.
What are y'all capable of doing above what has been asked of y'all so far?
So we do all kinds of things. We tailor our services to what the customer needs. So we can do more. It's just going to cost more. So that's kind of. I'll tell y'all, I don't know where it stands now exactly, but just working with y'all in the past, there's a lot of things that the town used to do, as far as reading meters, turning cutoffs, line locates. Y'all did a lot of that stuff in-house years ago. The county handles all that now. So we are capable to do more. We kind of tailor our services to what's needed and requested by the customer. And if it's something that we don't feel we can meet that need, we'll tell you we can't meet that need. So that's kind of, what we do. So, and
What would be something you could meet the need?
we,
What do y'all not do?
so
You know what
We
the county,
do
you know what the
everything.
county does, you know what we would do.
right, yeah.
What
So-
do y'all not do?
So we do everything. We would prefer not to do some things. We could do everything. We would prefer not to read meters. Doing cut-ons and cut-offs, we're not going to get into being able to do that kind of thing, because that's something that somebody could call tomorrow, cut them off, 2 hours later, they're paying their bill, they're ready to get it cut back on.
Right.
So things of that sort, we wouldn't be interested in doing. Line locates, we could do, they're supposed to get 48 hours to do a line locate, so you should have time to do that. But it's something that, like I said, the county's handling now, the town has done in the past, however y'all want to handle it. So we have experience with many small towns and many water systems of doing many of it. But like I said, the cut-offs, we wouldn't be interested in doing. Meter readings, I would prefer not to do. We could do it. So now that y'all have the electronic, it's a drive-by thing, so it's not. We have some manual reads, but not as many as I think I don't know how many there is, but there's not a ton of them. So, like I said, we don't mind who we work for. We're here to serve that water plant, whether it's for y'all, whether it's for the county, for the water authority, whatever y'all decide to do, we'll help in any way we can.
Oh, you go.
What kind of shape is that water plant in your expertise?
So using the current water from the wells, the filters need to be replaced badly. The media and the filters need replaced badly. They've been needing to be replaced for quite some time. I understand, it was all waiting on the pipeline. Pipeline's there, but it's just, if you're talking about just the wells you currently have, the media needs replaced in both filters. The tanks, you've done tank inspections, and the engineer put a stamp on approval on those tanks for 5 years. The county replaced the hydro tanks, so it's brand new. So it's a brand new tank. The ground storage tanks, I don't know, when I was working with Dimitri about, it was probably 10 to 15 years ago, y'all had those ground storage tanks rehabbed from the inside, but that was 10 to 15 years ago, so, and they had holes in them then, and they were sandblasted down, re-epoxied, filled, all that stuff. So I don't know what condition they're in currently. I think the county might have had an inspection done recently, December maybe?
They did.
Yeah, December.
Yes. I don't know what the results of that were, but I heard they were supposed to have been one done.
Okay, yeah, so I think
They're good for the next 5 years.
They're good for the next 5 years.
Okay, good.
Okay. So then the tanks are, got to through 5 more years. But other than that, the county has put money into that plant. They put a new generator in, a new tank, or whoever it was, somebody was doing something. Yeah, the media is the main thing that needs to be replaced.
And currently, who's responsible for changing those filters? We are, or the county?
I'm not sure.
As of now, we are.
Per the well, okay, I don't know about October 1st, but prior to October 1st, it was the county.
county.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's supposed to do the operations and maintenance and all that. Go ahead.
Well, it's a question for me.
Okay, mine's little. I'm guessing, and I'm gonna ask you, but if our guys used to do it in the past, if they were to ride around with you or Kevin or whoever does it for a month or two and just kind of see where they are, is there anything like that's something they could take back over, right?
We could work something out. Yeah, we're here to help in any way we can. I don't know. I mean, I worked with Vernon and Buster in the past for many, many years. So I know Vernon retired. I assume Buster's still here. But yeah, I mean, whatever we can do to help, we're here to help.
Okay. So, and then you go.
So with all of your years here in Fort White, what about like the chemicals and supplies and all that stuff? Was that provided by the town and then the county, or has it ever been provided by Twofold?
We have never provided chemicals, so the town was either paying the bill, and then whenever the county took it over, the county paid the bill for the chemicals that are used at the time. And I don't know how much that is right now, but I mean, we could request that information. You might have that information already.
It's about, depending on how you're gonna load them, it's about $200 every 2 weeks.
Okay.
400.
So you all just show up here and
Right.
do whatever
We
testing
run the
and
testing,
assessment.
yep, run the testing, we still backwash the filters, pull a remote sample on chemicals as well, then we'll pull testing once a month, bacteria testing that we send off to the lab, and then we track the chemical testing that's required, which usually there's only one big set of chemicals every 3 years. But if you have a hit on that, like y'all have in the past with the disinfection byproducts, you'll stay on quarterly for a while, but y'all fell off of that with the quarterly system.
And as far as you all coming and doing what you do, I mean, is there any sort of an assessment on a regular basis while y'all are here, or, you know, if something were seen and identified as a problem, like, hey, you guys need to look at this is fixing to go out, or a failure or something like
Yeah, you
that?
don't walk away from anything. So I mean, as you're walking through, you're going to the same spot every day. Your eyes and ears, you're seeing things and hearing things. Man, that sounds different than it did yesterday. What was that? And you look at the motor and see what it is. So yeah, yes, sir. We're not gonna ignore anything. We'll notify whoever is in charge that hey, this is gonna be a problem, and then we can help fix that. You know that. Y'all probably remember back in, was it January 1st, right after Christmas, there was a leak at the water plant, had to shut the whole town of water. We were here in the middle of the night getting that fixed, with a contractor so that, you know, water was back on by the next morning. So just things like that we'll see and try to help organize. I was running different places to get parts to help make sure that was happening.
So I guess my question is, like, when you show up to take a sample, I mean, do you all do like a cursory inspection of everything? Is that part of the?
It is. So we're reading meters. So there's a meter on each well. There's a meter in the high surface pump room. So we're going around reading meters. So we're walking the whole plant, checking the filters, making sure the valves are in the right location on the filters currently. And then if the county's, you know, right now the pipeline, there's some flushing going on in the pipeline. We're trying to keep track of that, how much water is being flushed through and stuff like that.
And so if you identify some sort of a potential problem,
Right.
that might involve replacement of a piece of equipment or something like that, then you just notify and pass the town or the county, and then it's their responsibility to, you know, order the part or whatever. They may or may not contract with you to replace it. Okay.
And we've ordered stuff before, we've got stuff, whatever's needed, you know, we'll help do. And then it's always, if we can do something preventative, emergencies cost more money. So we're always gonna be on the side of, hey, more cautious, hey, if this something's up with this, we need to check this out.
Right. Okay. Thanks.
All right, anybody else got any more questions for,
I'm good right now.
Mr. Hunt? Okay, all right. Thank you, Tom.
Thank
Appreciate it, man. I know we got Mr. New here, we'll jump right into new business, then we might just have you come up anyway after that, but just so we can start talking. Okay, so the water plant,
Can I please?
okay, go ahead.
Did you have anything you wanted to talk about now or at this point, or?
I provided, at our last meeting, the board asked for a proposal to help them develop a kind of a transition plan. I got with our team, we prepared a proposal and transmitted it, and I'm available to discuss it if you have any questions. What it engages or what it might not engage, those types of things.
If the council would rather just have you just come up now, you can come up now.
Yeah.
Come up, yeah, come up, if you don't mind, Mr. New, and go over your proposal here. I think we all got a copy of it.
You got a copy of it?
Do I have a copy? Not on me, no, I'm sorry.
There's a copy, it's not part of the agenda stuff.
Kelly, would you like to grab some copies?
Go ahead, sir.
Just give Tom money, that's for right now.
Who needs it?
Are you requesting one?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
it's not part of the agenda material either.
Here you go. If Monica shows up, you have to cop back up.
I don't mind. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, you got an extra one? Okay, here.
It's here.
That way, oh, there we go. Do a switcheroo. All right, Mike, go ahead if you don't mind.
So at the last meeting, the board was asking questions about, what a transition plan could look like, and I explained that they can be pretty basic to-do lists, and they can get pretty complicated for a large utility. It could be a several inch thick plan, and it could cover every detail, could do tons of analysis on, what your scenarios were, alternatives were, and with those types of recommendations. The board indicated to me that they were looking more for the scaled back version that would be more of a checklist of things that we don't want to miss. We want to be able to plan for so that we have a smooth transition. And our team has performed that analysis for other communities before, and we prepared essentially a checklist under scope of services that included, it looks like it's about a page and a half, and I don't have to go through each line item, But developing a checklist of all those safety procedures that you want to go through, your SOPs, standard operating procedures. You know, what personnel requirements are going to be, would review your permit and give you a list of all the important things you need to know about, sampling requirements, reporting requirements, all those sorts of things. Checklist items of, you're going to want to need to establish a procedure for after hours response, as the operator here pointed out. In the past, sometimes they handle them and sometimes the county handles them. Well, you guys are going to have to think about that and decide who you want to handle. Do you want your team to come out, or do you want to contract with Twofold or whoever the operator is to do those things? So the idea, though, is to make sure that we sit down, plan some time, go through every possible scenario that you would face operating a water system, so that you have a plan in place and you don't get, you know, a weekend, a month in, and something comes up, you're no chlorine, because we didn't have a clear plan on who was going to be ordering the chlorine. The county had been ordering it, but they're not ordering it anymore, and the city may have thought that, or the town may have thought that Twofold was going to get it. And Twofold might be thinking that the town was going to order the chlorine. So making sure that all of that is put into place so that you just don't have those hiccups. Who's responsible for sampling? Yeah, I would recommend, and this plan recommends, that you have a couple of utility contractors with equipment, that if you jump into something that's bigger than you can dig up with shovels and you need heavy equipment, that you can call them to come in and assist you on those things on an emergency basis. Normally, you're going to want that figured out ahead of time. There should be a contract in place with some firm that says, look, it'll be time and materials, but we need your emergency contact information, and we need to call, and you need to have assurances from this contractual relationship that you're going to get paid if you respond and help us out. Often talked about, or much talked about, what are we going to do about billing? Are we going to do it in-house or contract it out? That there needs to be a discussion and a decision made about how you want to move forward with that. Fleet needs. You operated the water plant some 4 years ago. Was there a piece of equipment? Was there pickup trucks? You know, if you're using some of your personnel, you're going to need some fleet. And we would have those conversations and identify what you need. And if you have it, great, we'll use what we got. If we don't have it, then that's an acquisition list. And then the administrative functions. It'd be inappropriate to get back into the utility business without establishing an expense budget. It likely is a requirement of state law, but even if it's not, it's absolutely best practice. You'd want to know what your revenues are projected to be. You want to know what your expenses are. You want to start the thing out believing that you're going to have revenue sufficient to cover your operating expenses. The only way really to do that is to develop a budget and get it adopted by this board. How the regulatory community works. I heard you asking about some tanks and what was the condition of the tanks. And that's a regulatory thing. You're required by Florida statute to have those tanks inspected every 5 years. And so you've done that in December 24, but you'd also want a list. These are all the compliance things that we need to be looking towards doing and schedule them, so that each year in a regulatory perspective, you sit down with your operator. It's twofold. You sit down with your operator in October and say, look, our tanks haven't been inspected in 5 years. We got a plan for that this year in order to stay in compliance with FDEP statutes. Sometimes it's an inspection, sometimes it's a wash down. You just don't have to do a formal inspection, but they require the tank to wash down, cleaned out any sediment that's accumulated in the tank. And what about those necessary capital improvement expenses? He mentioned that your filter media needs to be replaced. And well, let's have a conversation about that. Who's funding it? Who's coordinating? Who's your project manager? Is Twofold taking care of that, or are you guys going to hire a consulting firm like North Florida Professional Services to manage that, or are you going to try to do it in-house? Those are all the things that would be considered and put in front of this board as y'all need to be thinking about if you want to get back in the water business, in our opinion. So we provided that, and we indicated that if we're authorized to perform the work, that we will meet in partnership with Florida Rural Water Association, with Twofold and Columbia County. That everybody has indicated a great willingness to meet and share ideas, so that this transition works well. So we would coordinate that meeting, do a facility tour, have all those conversations, and write you up a written report of these are our findings, and this is kind of your go-by as you transition into the business. So if we scheduled a kickoff meeting and a facility tour, and we would provide you with a written report, we would perform that work within 28 days of notice to proceed, and we offered a fee of $9,975 for your consideration. I'm available for questions if you have.
Questions for?
I've got somebody want to go first?
I do have a question. So after we get the report with all this information in it, what would you recommend that we do? Look at all that information and then develop a plan of how we want to move forward, whether we want to do some of it in-house and contract some of it out, or whether we want to do it all in-house or contract it all out?
Budget,
Yeah.
revenue.
Once you have the report in hand, it will, there are certainly some things that you're considering how you want to move forward on. So, you know, if you know, we would probably identify that you can hire operators in-house or you continue to contract out operations. Typically, if you want to continue those operations, there's typically some sort of procurement. And Twofold does that all the time, so, you know, it's not their favorite thing, and I don't think it's uber formal, but there is a procurement process, because there may be other firms like Twofold that could perform that. If you decide we want to do it in-house, then there is well, we need to get some job descriptions, and we need to do some advertising to hire staff on. So, you know, those are the next steps. You know, letters, we might draft a letter to DEP that says effective this date. We've negotiated with Columbia County, and on March 1 of 2026, we're going to resume operations of that water treatment plant again. So you want to put those people on notice. And, you know, I've mentioned getting a utility contractor list that, you know, you probably identify who are 3 local utility contractors that have experience or licensed underground utility contractors that can help us if we get ourselves in a jam. Who are we going to procure fuel from, and will we get that under contract? So once you get the report back from us, it's going to have, these are, you know, in our opinion, these are all the boxes you're going to want to check, and then that each one of them likely would have a different to-do. You know, there's not a procurement associated with notifying the regulatory communities, but, you know, we would notify that, well, DEP needs to be aware, the Water Management District needs to be aware, and I don't believe Columbia County regulates water utilities to my knowledge, so you probably don't need to let them know. But all of the emergency response personnel need to realize that there's a change in who's overseeing operations, because water plants are super high on the priority list for emergency response. So you're going to want Columbia County EOC to be contacting your team, whoever's in charge from the city staff, and also your operations staff. If there's an emergency that arises, whether it's someone spilled some chemicals near the water plant that could potentially contaminate it, which is pretty remote chances, but they do happen from time to time, or we've got the upcoming hurricane coming, and we want to make sure you guys are aware that we're sending diesel out to your emergency generator every 16 hours to ensure that your water plant remains in operation, those types of things. So does that answer that question satisfactorily?
Yes, sir. So basically, this would give us the information to make informed decisions, and then from that, we could decide what or if we want to do in-house, and what or if any we want to contract out.
Absolutely.
And then that process would need like an RFP or whatever to put out.
Potentially, all your vendors, the city has a procurement process, and I mean, for vendors that you use once and the fee is less than $1,500, it may be, we don't need formal solicitations, or we don't need 3 quotes. For, you know, if the dollar value of the contract adds up to be more than $10,000 or $15,000 a year, there's typically a procurement process that you go through. I would imagine that it's soliciting proposals, you know, rather than hire a firm like mine to write up a very wordy, multi-page RFQ. Oftentimes you can take that checklist and say, here are all the things that we need you to do. would you give us a proposal to operate our treatment plant on a monthly basis? But you will have to identify the task you want them to do, because you want twofold, and whoever else might respond to that thing. You want it to be, we say it all the time, you want it to be apples to apples comparison. You know, if one firm is not bidding to a distribution maintenance, flushing fire hydrants, doing turn-ons and turn-offs, or repairing pipelines, if they're not bidding that, because we're just operators, and we're gonna operate your plant, and the rest of it, you know, that's up to someone else. And twofold says, oh no, they want the full treatment, and we're gonna include enough staffing to handle those distribution repairs, where you can see that when we look at pricing, well, wow, twofold looks a little bit high compared to their competition. Well, they bid on a different scope of work. So being able to develop a scope of work so that it is apples and apples, so that twofold and whoever else is responding can all be playing on a level playing field and offering you a proposal that responds to what your requested needs are strongly recommended.
Thank you.
Got anything else?
Yes.
Okay, I was under the understanding that we were looking at the plant,
Yes, sir.
see what shape it's in, to see, we're kind of, I don't know how to explain it. We're in a situation where there is another possibility, and that's buying water from North Florida Utilities. I mean, we got an $8 million water line run to that plant
Yes, sir.
that we were supposed to have been on since January 1st. They're here nor there, it's not on. But I mean, is that gonna be in y'all's, to look at that option? To see if that's a better option than keep pulling water with our plant, or?
That is certainly within the realm of possibility for us to help you evaluate. That is not necessarily part of a transition plan. You know, I think that part of the transition plan would be to identify who's going to perform those operations. And I think North Florida Regional Utilities probably would want to respond to an RFP based on what I understand, along with twofold. If you want to get into negotiating transfer of assets, or is it better to join North Florida Regional Utilities, I think that's a perfectly reasonable thing to consider, something this board should be considering, but it's not really in a transition plan. We're starting at the point that the board gave direction that we've noticed the county that we're taking operations back under. Now, what are we, under our purview, now what are we gonna do with it to operate that plant? And we're prepared to help you with that. We're prepared to help you with anything, but I don't want to tell you this is a transition plan and your expectations are, no, we want some alternatives evaluated that extensive. I mean, if it's looking over a budget, absolutely. If it's identifying that you do have these options, absolutely. But going through a cost benefit analysis in great detail about the very best option on who to operate the water plant, that is not anticipated in the proposal that we submitted.
Okay.
Anything else, Councilman King?
That's all.
I have one question. So I know before, in the other meeting, you mentioned that, you know, you could develop a plan and then we could request add-ons or additional. So what would it, look like to add something like what Mr. Coon was talking about onto that? And could that be done in conjunction with a transition plan to give us option A versus, you know, the transition plan to go with option B in the town, take over the operations?
Absolutely, it can be. You know, we would have to refine the scope and make sure we understand exactly what it is that you would like us to analyze and recommend to you. I think that as a recommendation for where we are now, if you had expressed urgency in taking over this operation, somewhere between 30 days and a year, being the outside of that, I think that it might be that, well, we're gonna hire a contractor that we're gonna direct, and assume those operations, you know, in that 90 or 180 day period that we discussed at the last meeting. And then if we want to, as a step B, well, now let's look at what, long-term we're gonna do. We're about to bring the wastewater system online. And do we wanna transition all of our assets to, North Florida Regional Utilities? Would be one clear alternative. I know enough about your system to know that's a clear alternative. Another clear alternative is we're gonna maintain control of those assets, but we're going to contract out operations of them, and we would anticipate that North Florida Regional Utilities might be a potential vendor for that, as well as Twofold might be a potential vendor for that. A third alternative that I just clearly see is that we think that we have a customer base and that we get the best local control. We're gonna hire a water plant operator and a wastewater plant operator, and one of them will function as our utility director, and we're just gonna staff it ourselves. It's something that, you see right off the top of the head, the actual cost associated with each of those and the benefits associated with each of those is more than you would get in these are all the things you gotta think about if you're gonna get in business. That it's a very doable exercise that our firm or another firm that looks just like us could and would happily do for you.
I think another thing too is that, I think we probably could just request from the utility authority what they're willing to offer. I don't know that we need to. You see what I'm saying?
Oh, well, I was gonna invite him to talk too, of course.
So. But any other questions for Mr. Good?
I think I'm good at this time.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Good. And then anybody, who you got questions for Mr. Roberts?
Well, I was just gonna say, he's here, I'm sure you have some
Yeah.
things you'd like to say too.
At our last board meeting, we had some discussions about, the decisions in the previous meetings. And so the board asked me to, not only attend today, but be willing to meet not only with, the mayor or whoever a representative might be to discuss the needs of the town, what you're interested in doing to work on cultivating some type of either a term sheet or an agreement or something like that. So I don't know where we'll go with that, but I'm certainly at a high level here to say that's what I'm willing to do and step through that process. One of the things, as I think about this, I just want to talk about some very high level things because I see some confusion, not only with the counties, but even, I'll just say that I don't think everybody necessarily has the best understanding of what a utility is. Most people think it's the plant, that thing, but it's more than that. It is not only what's in those fences, it could be a water plant, it could be pumps, it could be a system to put in chemicals and measure them, it could be the high pressure tanks that are gonna put the water into the lines, it could be storage tanks, it could be generators. That's all within the fence of that one thing. A few acres, depending on how big your plant is. That's one part of it. And then once you get outside that fence, you hit a water line, a main, and then those go for miles, and they're different sizes. And they're pressurized. Okay, so depending on how the customer base you need to serve, where you need to go and how far, you design where that's going. Sometimes it's looped, sometimes it's not. When those pipes leave, they're larger, but as they get out into service areas, they branch out into laterals. And the town owns all of that. The plant, everything on it, all those pipes, all those laterals. I call that the distribution system. So there's a plant, there's a distribution system, and then there's a customer connection or an endpoint piece. When your laterals come out, you're gonna put a meter in there, and the customer, it's their responsibility to run a pipe to that meter. That meter could be different sizes, 3/4 inch, 1.5 inch, whatever. I don't know what all the rate components are, could go all the way up to 4 inches. It's a commercial customer. But they're responsible all the way to the end of that. But from a utility operations perspective, they're watching what goes on in the plant, taking care of all of that, the distribution system itself, because there's a lot of activity that's happened there, and then on the customer side, the billing, the service calls, all those pieces. What's interesting about that, the way that I think about it is there are very few areas in the water operations where I would say costs are fixed. In terms of fixed costs, you can probably get close to fixed costs around what you're paying to monitor your plant. DEP has pretty clear recommendations on, hey, it's this thing, it's this big, it's in this basin, or it's not. They know what the requirements are, and they will tell you, you have to be in this thing for so many hours a day, whatever, watching it. You can pretty much package that up, probably sample testing, things like that. Major capital investments, or maybe even some major repairs might be able to, you can nail them down as a fixed cost. But there's also a lot of other things in the plant that are variable. And it really depends on, like who knows when a pump is gonna go out? Who knows when something needs work? So it could be small one year, big the next, so it varies. Lots of things make that change. You can have emergency repairs, alarm events, after hour events. All of that is someone has to show up, someone's got to take care of it. And it's not fixed cost. You can do it for a fixed amount per hour, but it really turns into time and materials, and you don't know what it is till you get into it. So that's the fixed and variable on the plant side. In the distribution system, it's probably a little more fixed. You pay to put those pipes in, and they're in. If you want to extend them, add new, like this system isn't looped. If you wanted to loop it, you can figure out what that is and go after it. The variable cost on the distribution system can be substantial. So a distribution system, a plant might sit on an acre or two. Your piping runs miles, square miles of the town's area. And, you know, the more you grow, the bigger it gets. So where that, you have to do some maintenance on it. Usually not maintaining a pipe unless something's damaged it. You know, of course, then you got to fix it. Or someone hits a fire hydrant or something like that. Those things happen. But one of the things that really gets variable and can really start costing money is locates. So last week, the county, I say county because they weren't North Florida at that time, they got a request for 30 locates. And basically what's happening is a cable provider is going down a 3/4 mile section, and they're doing a directional bore under the street. And they're doing that where telephone poles are. So the power company has a cable provider that's doing directional bores because fiber is going to come in and it's going to telephone poles for about 3/4 of a mile. So that was 30 locates. So after that happens, they're going to turn around on each side of the road and run fiber all the way down the road. So those 30 locates are going to turn into more locates because you drilled that way. Now you're going to run across everything. So it could be 60, 70, 80, we don't know how many feet. But it varies with more activity and more stuff. You just have to go out and find it so it can be safeguarded. You want to identify it so no one messes it up. And with the collection system piping for the wastewater plant goes in, that's a whole nother set of things that'll have to be located. So your locates look one way now, they're gonna look different when your collection piping gets in. You know, it's just more stuff in the ground that you have to take care of. I think that's one of the biggest variable things that I'm seeing. Alarm events, after hours, emergency repair. On the customer service side, your utility billing, you know, what you're paying somebody to run the bills, use the software, that's fixed. It's easy enough to do that. What is variable is responding to new service installs, customer requests, after hours requests. Hey, my water looks this way. I need somebody to come help me out, or I've got a leak. How do I know if it's your problem or my problem? So those are all those things that are kind of going up and down. It's just how it is. And I think it's important if the town is considering bringing it in, I mention those things because I want you to have a good understanding for what's fixed and what's variable. And what's variable can be problematic. Okay, it's not, I don't want to tell you it's that way every year because it's not. I just want you to be aware of those things. Now, from a utility perspective, the other thing that I think is important to think about, the decision that the council is considering here is strategically, and we've even mentioned some of them already. There's been some great things mentioned already. One of them is, are you gonna continue to pull water from your wells? Or are you gonna bring water in? Water's already at the plant. I was just there today. They were fixing that sensor valve, the chloramine sensor valve on it. They've got it in. And it looks like it's working. So you've got all that piping right there, but you've also got 2 well points. But those well points are old. They've got some issues, at least one of them does, and it affects the color of the water. Frankly, because of where it sits in the Florida, from the well reporting information that I got, one of those wells, I don't know that it'll ever bring up good water. So do you keep doing that? And then the other thing, Todd mentioned filtration, your green sand and your active carbon. Those are big ticket items. Green sand could be 50 to 80,000 installed, maybe. I mean, I don't know what the price is. I just did a quick ChatGPT AI search. I don't know what it would really cost to get here. And the same thing with the active carbon. That could be 20 to 50 million. And the flushing that has to happen with it. All of that goes into keeping what you got and running it. Now, your green sand, you're not going to do that every year. 10 years, you should be good. Your active carbon could last 2 years, but because of the wellheads and the situation in Florida and the way it flows underneath, that's affecting the wellheads. So the active carbon probably need to be replaced sooner than that. You might get a year out of it. But if that's a $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 expense each year, it makes you think about, do I want to keep doing that? Or do I just simply take this water that's coming here and then figure out a strategy of the existing resources that I have, what could reasonably be decommissioned? Or do I go back to Suwannee River Water Management District and say, hey, I want to shut off these wells here, but I want the water use permits that I've got. I want to relocate a well field somewhere else where I could pull water up and bring it back to the existing facility that I've got, or bring a new one. Those are all big picture kind of things that affect what you're deciding now. Do I want to go this way? Do I want to go that way? It affects cost. It's one of the biggest things it affects. The other thing is just doing the best you can to estimate your variable cost with realistic data and information. That's difficult to do. It's even difficult for me to do because I built a budget for the utility authority, and I thought I was good until I sat down with my utility director, and he corrected me in several areas where I was trying to be too stringent. I was trying to decrease my budget, but I was creating operational risk because I wasn't putting enough money into it. So we made changes. The other piece I think you have to think about is whatever funding you have, you're going to need to seriously think about reserve funding for emergency repairs. They don't happen all the time, but Mike has mentioned this. He's talking about bringing vendors on it, and I totally get it. I'm about to do the same thing for the utility authority, make sure I have resources to go after. But I've also earmarked funding because if I need to replace a pump, a this, a that, I just don't know what it is, but I've got to have some money set aside to do that. If the town is going to do it and they're going to operate it, then it's on you. It's on the town to come up with whatever it's supposed to be. Now, if you don't use that money this year, you can roll it to the next year. But what that number needs, you'd have to determine that. The other thing that I really want to focus on is, at least from a utility perspective, I want to look at 2 things. Number one is, can we what can we do, and I think the utility has some ability on how it can treat expenses to kind of, I can spread expenses out over many areas. You guys have one plant, all your expenses go to one plant, one distribution system, one customer set, that's it. I have 6 or 7 of them that I can spread things out. So it gives me the ability to lower expenses because of the way I can distribute them. But the other thing it makes me think of is, how can we look at this where we can compress expenses to increase the possibility of a consistent revenue share? I wasn't around when the agreement with the county was signed. I've heard some information about there was some revenue that came over a certain time period. I think our board is focused on how could we create, a service proposal to help the town long-term that gives them a consistent revenue stream year over year. Now, sometimes there could be expenses that maybe impact that. I don't know. We need to look at it. But that's one of the key things that they want to do. What we see in some other places, they're offering a revenue share for folks that are, you've got utility authorities running their utilities. They're carrying all the expense, doing all the work, and they get a revenue stream back each year. We're flexible. That's something I think we need to look at, but something the board wants to seriously consider and offer. And then the other thing I think that's important is I'm starting to do more work with having more conversations with DEP and the Water Management District, so I can better understand what I can do as a regional utility and how I can look at the needs of the region and what are my funding opportunities on a regional basis. There are some projects we're just now starting to look at. Some of them have to do with alternative water use projects. The county, Columbia County, needs a 250,000 gallon wastewater plant because the plant they have in Ellisville isn't going to be enough to keep up with the growth. We're talking about trying to get funding for a feasibility study that looks at the region, the southern region of both counties where they don't have a lot of assets there. What can we do there, and how do we tie that to other projects? Like from the east, there is a big alternative water use project that they have a group between the St. John's River Water Management District, the Swanee District, and a consortium of other groups. They believe that they can push 1 million gallons of treated water, that's drinking water quality, over here into our region. We sit on top of the aquifer. This is the best place in the state to recharge the aquifer. So there are a lot of pieces that are moving together. So one of the things that we want to understand, and I think would affect you guys at all, if we're collaborating, we're doing business together, then that easily brings the town into the fold to understand what can we do on a regional basis on, be it water, wastewater, alternative sources, things like that. Like I sat on a call a month ago about a data center. I don't think I can say the name of the company, but it is a gigantic software company on the west coast of the United States that wants to build a data center somewhere around the southern end of Columbia County, between exit 414 or closer to Alachua. And they're going to need alternative water to run their AC system. So it's a 1 million square foot data center that's nothing more than a giant refrigerator with computers in it, and they need water to run their AC systems. They don't want drinking water, they want reuse water, which is probably cheaper to give them than drinking water is. So there are things like that that are popping. So what I'm trying to do is understand how I can bring all of that together.
No, keep going. I'm saying because I want to open it up for council member comments.
No, that's a great point.
Okay.
Great stopping point.
Okay. Do you have any other highlights or anything? I wasn't cutting you off. I was
No, sir, no, sir,
Okay.
I'm good.
okay. Councilwoman?
I just wanna say, I personally would like to see revenue share, but we not just receive a drop in the bucket. You know, we receive a large amount without taking risk. And I know that's kind of a loaded statement.
The other thing, and I heard Mr. And they're all good points that you raised, but it sounds like the vast majority, if not all of that, will be identified in the proposal that Woodard and Kern is going to work on. And I mean, this sounds like, I think our engineers would know how all of that is being handled, or
If you expand the
alternatives,
scope of it, it will.
or what the cost of. Yeah, I mean, so what I'm saying is, it's we can get that data and that information, and it sounds like you're going to provide that, so that we'll be able to evaluate those things, which is good. I think that's good.
I'm good.
So Shannon, if Fort White continues a partnership with the North Florida Water Utility Authority, what would the future of our wells be?
If I look at it just by the pure numbers, I think you need the water use rights. So those use rights go with the own, who owns the facility, owns those use rights, owns the permitting, all of them. So if the town owns them, I think you need to retain the rights. I think you probably need to abandon them. Not yet, but figure out a plan to move them somewhere else. And if you want to continue to use that plant long-term, I think you're gonna have to do something with your wells, or you're just gonna cycle through major capital expenditure after another. That was certified in 2010. So it's 15 years or more. You're just in the life where you're gonna have to feed it more and more capital to maintain it. And then without changing those wells, I don't think you're really gonna affect the clarity of your water. Not its purity, but the color of it, between that and looping the system. But I think if you've got wells that are at a difficult spot because of sinkholes and things like that, I think you gotta move them. Now, if you would like, the utility authority could certainly help with creating a strategy to do things like that. You know, we'd be happy to do that.
The reason I ask is because, and I'm just being honest and I'm putting it out there, I've had several conversations with town residents that have asked me, well, how bad are our wells? I mean, how bad are they really? If we're, still drinking that water, 3 years later, and it's passing the inspections. I think the mayor mentioned that we had been failing a lot of the quality reports, but here lately we've been passing.
Yeah, for the last year and maybe an extra quarter.
And like I said, there's just one thing you're failing. I mean, it's just byproducts.
Right.
Well, one, I think, is the problematic one, the dirtier of the two. Now, if everybody's fine with the color of the water, I mean, I think it's gonna come back to, that's why you're gonna have to spend more on your filtration systems, because you're bringing in stuff and you need those systems, and it's gonna force you. That's where you'll see your capital investment, especially on the active carbon side. You're just gonna have to keep doing it, and then looping the lines. If you're not gonna loop the lines, if you're at the end of the line, you get tea water or something that doesn't look nice.
Right.
Is it drinking water quality? Sure. It just doesn't look nice. It's overcoming that. I think you could certainly explore doing that. I look at it from just dollars and cents. You're gonna spend more. It's old enough, you're gonna start spending more in the tanks. Yes, you're good for the next 5 years. Will you be good after that on those tanks? I have no idea.
Right.
That's something you're gonna wanna get ahead of, because that's another major capital expense. Now, could you potentially find grant money? Yes, you could pursue it, and you could request, and you could ask, and you could spend some money to get work done to say, this is a problem, we wanna replace it, here's what we wanna do. Sure, but it's not a guarantee.
Right. So two things have come up in a lot of conversation with me and residents. And first was, how bad can our water really be if we're still drinking it 3 years after? And if, you know, the county got the water over here in January, you know, if our water was that bad, wouldn't there have been something done between the last 9 months to get that water on? And then the water reports. But then the other concern was, if we contract with the North Florida Water Utility Authority to, you know, operate the water plant, you know, they're just selling us our own water again. And that was, you know, a lot of the, you know, I guess people that were unhappy with the agreement with the county was that the county's operating for us and keeping all the revenue, which, you know, if you look at the numbers on paper, it's over $100,000 a year. So, you know, they looked at it as they're operating our plant and selling us our own water and keeping all the profits in excess of $100,000 a year. So,
Well, I certainly understand the sentiment, you know, the water in the ground is free. Pulling it out and giving it to everybody and treating it, that's the expensive part. That's gotta happen no matter who does it.
right.
Whether you do it yourself or somebody else does it, that's a given. It's gonna cost something to do it. That's why I really wanna, and our board is sensitive to this, is focus on what can we do to create some type of revenue component to it that isn't, oh, we'll do it for a limited time. You know, I think if we can manage the expenses properly, I think you could create something where you could have at least a percentage, maybe somewhere from 4 to 4.5%, that you could say, hey, whatever the revenue is, you know, let's take 4.5% of that and send it here, or 4, depending upon what expenses do. How that happens, how it's structured, I don't know, you could work that out.
That way, just real quick, so of the approximately $330,000 revenue that plant would generate, that would be, we get 13,000 of that. Go ahead.
And that's what I've been hearing too, you know, that, you know, we don't want, you know, we want the lion's share.
You want
Yeah.
more than that?
That's what I'm hearing from residents, and so that's one reason why it's, you know, if we're operating our plant and, you know, we're using the water, you know, we want a good share of that, excess revenue, so,
Understood.
thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Oh, did you have any questions, Cousin?
No, is there, that's the one.
And that's
I'm sorry,
yeah, you go.
I don't mind saying that 4% is,
Yeah, that's not, that ain't, yeah, that ain't.
I just want to ask one more thing, excuse me. If, just consider this, and maybe, Mr. Thomas, maybe this is something you and I do. What I'd really like to do is understand, what is it that the council wants? What do you want? What do you need? You know, 4%, depending on the expenses. I don't know what that number is. Does it need to be 25K? Is that a number? I don't know. Tell me, we don't have to do it here. I want to understand what in the town, where you want to go, what do you want out of it? That helps me structure it. That helps me get to understanding what can be done.
And you know, and I think what we might end up doing is, as Mr. New and his firm is working on that proposal, maybe if the utility authority can work on a proposal and say, hey, here's what we're willing to offer.
Sure.
This is the rate we would sell you the water at. This is about how much water you use. This is what it would cost.
Yeah.
And then we could bounce that off what kind of Mr. New provides. Take a look at those numbers and see what makes sense.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, and one of the things that I'm gonna wanna know is, well, depending on if you're operating the plant or not, if you're, depending on what's happened with that and who's doing that, that could affect the revenue share. If I have less expenses, my ability to offer a greater revenue share goes up. So having some of those questions answered would be really helpful, instead of just, I feel like I don't want to walk around and don't know. I know that I don't know, so I'm asking, how do I get to that point? And if that's dialogue or whatever, just let me know what it is, so I can, what I wanna be able to do is create something that has a tight alignment with what you're interested in and what you need. If it's not that, then it's not worth the effort.
Yeah, and that's fair, and that's a great point. And I think the kickoff point would be, you know, if the council votes to go with Mr. News so he can do his presentation, sure. That would be kind of the kickoff point. We would say, okay, hey, here's what we're looking at. On the one hand, what could you offer on this hand, assuming if y'all win? Okay, tweak the numbers. How much could you give us if we win? And then that way we can see. We'll have, you know, the 3, 4, 5 options, and we can see whatever makes sense for the town for win.
Well, I don't know how the board's gonna wanna do that. I don't think they're gonna wanna go through a process where they have every little thing. They are focused more on something like understand their terms, what is it that they need, and propose the whole thing to them.
Maybe I'll talk with you and you let me know what it is the board's looking at, and within that framework,
Yeah,
we can get 1 or 2, like an A and a B maybe.
yeah. I just wanna make sure we know what that is so we can put it together and join in the process of trying to sort it out.
So if the council decides to put out, say, an RFP, is the utility, interested in responding to that RFP?
Yes.
Okay, cause I was gonna say, the only true way for us to know what the potential profits for the town is to do an RFP process and see what comes in, and that could be from the utility authority, could be from Twofold, it could be from XYZ, you know, and then to see what offers are on the table, and then go from there. And so the authority would participate in that if we put out an RFP.
Yes, we would.
Okay.
Yeah. And we have a quote from Twofold, and
You have
a rough estimate. Yeah, we have a rough estimate, not a binding quote if we sign it. Yeah. So we have a rough estimate from that. And from what I understand, we could put out an RFP. I don't think for the service that Twofold is prepared to offer at approximately $4,000 a month. Maybe, right?
Well,
Maybe we'll find someone
that's highly dependent on what y'all would be doing.
That-
What we right.
that's
Right.
exactly what I was
It's not right. It's not them doing it right.
Yeah, your cost isn't gonna be $4,000.
You're not comparing apples to apples here.
There you go. So what I was gonna say is, we would probably take the report, if we did a study, and go through it and identify what we want to do at town, and that might be meter reading and billing. And then we would develop an RFP to cover all those other things, Mr. New, you know, and then we would have to put it out, and everybody would be bidding on apples.
Go ahead.
I would just offer that, and, you know, I've heard it mentioned a few times, apples to apples and apples to oranges. That it is, to really make the best decision for your community, it's really critical that you understand where you're coming from. And I would say that what you did in the past with Twofold versus what you've done recently with the county are not apples and apples. Twofold was a vendor that was employed by you. There was no revenue sharing at all. They sent you a monthly bill and you paid them, and whether that utility operated revenue surplus or revenue deficient was 100% on y'all. The relationship with the county was, hey, county, y'all come in and take over, and y'all deal with the revenue and the expenses. So that is closer to a franchise agreement. So, and, you know, I think that utility systems are unique because we don't deal with them every day. But if I provide you with a brand new 4-wheel drive pickup truck, and don't tell you what I paid for, and you have no idea, and then you go out and try to negotiate a deal with it, and you don't know if that's a $50,000 pickup truck or a $5,000 pickup truck, you're just not really, you don't have enough information to do a good job with it. And I can tell you the same thing's happening right here, that if you allow someone to come in and operate a utility system within your town limits through a franchise operation, that the going rate for franchises is 10% of operating revenues. But when you do that, and if you you may have a natural gas or you may have a propane gas franchise today. You all make revenues, franchise revenues off the sale of natural gas or propane gas in your community?
Propane and things.
Okay, so, so that would be an example of that, solid waste. Typically, your solid waste contract is probably gonna get you a 10% franchise fee. Your electric utility revenues are gonna be a 6% franchise fee. If Clay Electric or Duke Energy is providing you franchise off of your electric revenues at 6%. So it's important that you know that, because, you know, if Duke was giving you 1% and they're giving the rest of the world 6%, you'd want to know that, you know, what's going on with this. The other thing I want to make sure you're educated about, and I think all of this works, but you need to understand, if you're bringing the assets to the table, then there needs to be consideration for those assets on top of the franchise fee. So, you know, with your water plant out there, and he explained it beautifully, you have a water treatment plant that has a very calculable value. You know, a well, if you go put in a new well today, you can't put in a new one for less than $1 million. You put the well pump down in it, probably another $500,000. You have 2 of them, that's $3 million. And then those tanks, he was sharing with you how much they cost. And then the distribution system coming into town, which is all buried below ground, you can't see it, that, you know, that has a value as well. I think you guys bid a wastewater collection system and a wastewater treatment plant. And the bid prices, anybody, Greg knows, bid prices for the treatment plant, for the wastewater treatment plant were 10 million?
It was like 4.5.
4.5, and how much for the collection system?
The collection system was about 10.
10, okay. So just the wastewater collection system, the infrastructure under the ground, under your streets that you can't see were 2.5 times what the value of the plant is. Now, you know, it would take an engineering analysis, a financial analysis to go count how many linear feet of water pipe you got in this 8-inch water pipe, in this PVC or this ductile iron, for you to determine the value of that. But it is, people do that all the time. His firm does it and does it well, and our firm has done it. You know, I'm a utility engineer. I've spent half my career having to calculate how much, you know, that the infrastructure provided by some new development, what the value was, and we would add it onto our books. So if you say to anyone that we're going to allow you to operate our water system within our city limits, you can start with 10% is what the franchise fee is, and then you need to determine what the value of the assets are that you are transitioning to them. Because when the gas company comes into town, you don't buy their water, you don't buy their gas system and put it underground for it. They make that expense and then they pay you 10% on top of that. So I'm not telling you that that is the only way to go in this. I think you have several really good partners in here, but I will tell you that to some extent, it seems like you guys are negotiating with an asset that you have no idea the value of. And you're never going to make a good decision if you don't know how much that truck sitting out in the parking lot is worth, what the going rate for that truck is. You either are going to over ask and insult the counterparty, or you're going to under ask, and the people that paid for that truck, and in this case it's going to be the town citizens, are going to get a bad deal. So I just caution you, that's all I've ever done when I come to your town council meetings, is caution you to get the right type of information so that you can make the best decisions. Your electors pick the 5 best people to make those decisions, but they know you're not water system or wastewater system experts. You're going to need for someone to provide you, it doesn't have to be me or our firm, get the right information so that you make a really good decision for your residents. And if it ends up being in a partnership with the North Florida Regional Utility Board, I would applaud that and tell you guys you did a fantastic job. Just make sure you go on with your eyes wide open, blinders on, and don't not understand that the value of the asset that you guys are working with here.
One question. How much did you say a pump cost? A water pump?
A well pump.
A well pump.
A well pump, like you drop down in one of those wells, 10 or 12 inch well casing, I'm guessing.
6 inch.
There's.
That's a 6 inch well casing?
Small.
Okay, well, that's a smaller well, but you could, I mean, the pump itself, is probably, depending on the depth, is 6 figures, but not the $500,000. By the time you add motor control centers, get it installed and get it operating, there's something called well development that folks do to make sure that it draws the right amount of water. As a budget number for communities our size, I use $500,000 for the well pump, pretty routinely. Budget, just, high level, what we're thinking of, it's not a $50 million well, but it's also not a $50,000 well. I think it's closer to $500,000 to get a well pump down in that and get it operating. He probably knows better than me, or Greg may know better than me.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I appreciate you stepping back up.
Yes.
I appreciate that.
Mr. Bailey.
First off, we're talking, and the main point of this is about the water plant, the water system, as far as drinking water goes. Don't lose sight of constructing a wastewater. My personal advice to you is you got to keep them together. I don't think you want to be contracting with North Florida Regional Utility to do the water and somebody else to do the wastewater. I think you need to keep those together. The cost performer between those two are different. So some of the profit that you see you might be having on the water side, you probably ain't gonna have it on the wastewater side. So just please keep that in mind whenever you're doing this, and we are comparing apples to apples here. The other thing was to kind of give your history cut up. You got some questions. The town built the water system, and I believe it was about 97, 98. They did that with a CDBG grant. They got from the state. It was very limited. A group out of Tallahassee did that. That system paid for just a basic water system at the time. The lines went out into the town. They dead ended. They had no loops in them. So that has created problems over time. I heard some questions about the water quality, and Todd can probably pitch in here, but you started having issues with disinfection byproducts. DEP regulates a certain number of constituents. That is one of them. You're using chlorine to disinfect. We had, because of the proximity of the sinkholes you have in the area, your wells are under circulatory influence, so we have organic matter that interacts with that chlorine and creates those constituents. The county, after they took it over, I think it was last year, maybe the year before, they switched you to a different type of process, disinfection process, with chloramines. Basically, that's using ammonia and chlorine together. It does a better job. It has some other issues associated with it, but it does a better job of not creating those DVPs in the environment that you had. Before the line that was constructed from Ellisville to Fort White, the town and the county working together, town and county decided that was the better option. There was an option that the town, as far as I know, still has access to this property, but the Water Management District had granted the town property up at Comore Hills for a well field. So there's a cost of getting that water from there back to the town, plus putting the wells in. I will say that the cost of the wells is quite higher. If you're building them where you're at now, where you're gonna do test wells, if you go put a test well down to determine, what the yield's gonna be and what the parameters of the production wells are gonna be, yeah, you keep costs down. But when you start doing a brand new arena, you're gonna be approaching about $1 million up there. The wells have got to be public supply wells, and typically right now are not gonna be 6-inch wells that you have now. They're probably gonna be a larger well, potentially 10 inches in diameter. So you're gonna have some increased costs, but, the town and the county were working at the time, and they decided to run that line there. The only thing that you haven't been able to get water, to recently was it was a switch, a flow switch was the problem. We finally had a meeting, you was in that meeting, what, a couple weeks ago?
Yeah.
And, the public works director for the county got the contractor and finally got everybody to go out there and check it. And, I told them I thought it was a couple of things, and sure enough, the contractor did install a switch according to the manufacturer's, specifications. So they had to basically redo that, but, hopefully that's, on the tail end, we should be able to get water, for that. But, the main thing is, like I said, I wanted you to make sure that you do have two systems, and you need to, as I like to say, you need to be all in the water or all out of the water. So, we don't want to be kind of dipping our toes in it one way or the other. So just keep that in mind, please. Okay?
Thank you.
So somewhere between chlorine and chloramine, I think they did peroxide. That's what-
Yeah, they tried some other things in
Yeah.
between.
But
I
anyhow,
think Florida Rural Water was involved with some of that. They
Yeah.
tried some different processes.
my question is, I read something about chloramine a while back, and there was an article that said that chloramine is bonding with some other substance, and they found a whole new molecule that is a byproduct of chloramine with this other, and they don't know if it's harmful yet.
Well, if you run chloramines, that you get some deposits in the lines, and typically once a year you want to run a straight chlorine burn to burn through that.
We just did that in August.
So
But this is something that just came out, that they just discovered a new molecule, it's not even, I don't know, it's unidentified.
I like to check that.
Yeah, I read it, I can see if I can find that article for you, I think I saw it at the end of last year, but anyhow, they said they didn't even know if that molecule was harmful to humans.
I can check into that.
Yeah,
Chloramine is not it's not like your everyday disinfection product that we use. It has it's used a lot in Europe, to be honest with you. But it doesn't seem to be in the United States as much as chlorine does. But the disadvantage of chlorine is if you've got organics, and that's carbon, if you got any sort of carbon material in the water, then it reacts with that, and if it ages any significant amount of time, it'll create the DVPs. And those are known issues. So, when they switch to chloramine, they can get the treatment process down. As Todd says, you're not tripping anything there. Now, could the water still be brown? Yeah, I mean, the color, your color is not part of that issue. So, I don't want people to think that you're drinking bad water.
right.
I mean, pretty water, but at times, but it's not bad.
And so the residual byproducts that we were having, was that because of the treatment process, or was that because our water is just so bad that we had to put so much chemicals in there to kill the?
It kind of all goes together. Chlorine, the quality of the water that you had, that you were getting out of the ground, is what leads to that.
But the chloramine does a better job of,
The chloramine in that environment does a better job.
without leaving as much of a residue.
We're putting a lot less chlorine in now,
Right, okay, thanks.
Okay.
I think.
It was brought up before that the St. John's Water Management District, I guess, Mr. Robbins brought that up, Shannon brought that up, wants to pump water from the Jacksonville area over here, actually the aquifer. That water is treated wastewater. That means that water's coming out of the ship plant. They don't wanna, that's what it is. They don't wanna drink it, instead of sending it to the residents of Jacksonville to drink, when it comes right out of the plant, you've seen those with those big vats, and They spin around, and if you fall in, you sink right to the bottom because the specific gravity is like battery acid. So that's what they want to ship here. You might want to consider that when it comes to keeping your own water treatment plant or turning on the pipe from Ellisville. Because if they start sending that water from the wastewater treatment plant, that's, you may be eventually drinking that. When you're pulling out of your own well, might not be as likely. But that is retreated wastewater. And I've seen some of those meetings in St. John's, and I haven't seen any member of the St. John's Water Management District Board drinking any of that retreated wastewater. So that's something you folks may want to keep in mind for the future. That's all.
There's a plant in Columbia, in Cole County, you can go drink some of it, Stu.
Stu,
Hold on.
Question.
He's got one for y'all. You don't have to answer if you don't want, but you can answer if you want.
I was just gonna ask you for a little bit more detail. Is there a plan in place or? is it
Yeah,
just
they're
a-
working on it. I think it's in modification now. And Mr. Roberts, he said on the meeting, I'm sort of out of the loop on that for the last 4 months. The only thing I can tell you for sure, it is treated wastewater. And they're thinking of building a pipe that goes from that area to this area. That's, as Mr. New just said, true. So that's what I got for you. He may have more recently, I don't. But it's wastewater.
You have a comment on that?
I hear. That particular project is using that to recharge the aquifer. No one's taken that and connected it to their water plant and passing it on to the public. It's not what's happening at all. This particular area, there are large areas in Columbia County and Suwannee County that are perfect areas to spray water on. It happens all the time. DOT does it. It's happening everywhere. That's one of the things you do. You treat the water, and after it meets the treatment specifications, you can put it into an infiltration basin. You may spray it out over an area. You may put it into a wetland, and then it percolates through the different layers of earth and goes back into the aquifer. That water that's going into the aquifer is cleaner than the water that's running into a sinkhole that's draining just a short distance away from where your wellheads are. That water that's going into that sinkhole is running wherever through the cow pasture, picking up whatever, going right into that sinking hole, straight into with nothing. So I just want to be clear, no one's taken that and sent it to you. But the Clay County Utility Authority has a special project where they are taking reclaimed water that they've treated, and their treated water is biologically cleaner than the water they're pulling out of the ground before they treat it. So it's already, after they treat it, it surpasses drinking water standards at that point. They have a plant that has, I think, 6 different filtration systems, and they purify that water again. And I was at the plant, I had some of the water, it's pretty good. I mean, yeah, I know the concept sounds crazy and everyone wants to, you can develop a lot of hyperbole around it, but it's pretty incredible. And you might not realize this, but there are some places that will take treated water that has been processed and treated, and it gets bottled and sold, and people love it. Military does it, astronauts do it. But I think there's a stigma around it. But it's a great project. But no one's talking about bringing that over here and connecting it to your water system to use it. It's not what it'd be for. Now it would be great water to send to a data center for their cooling system, or recharge or other things like that.
Geothermal unit or something.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, all right. So as far as the workshop, do we want to adjourn the workshop and see if we want to vote on this proposal here for the?
Oh, maybe we start at 8, because probably started till 7. What is scheduled for?
Yeah, we're gonna start soon. Do we want to adjourn? The floor's open for a motion to adjourn. I'll say that. I make a motion to adjourn. I'll say that.
We're gonna take a recess?
I got one question for Todd before we,
Oh, yeah.
just one short question. He said Stacy said one of them wells are bad around there. That we won't ever get it we'll always have a problem with that one.
So you have.
I guess that's, you're talking about, are you talking about the color of the water?
Yeah.
You're saying
Yeah, the coloration of the water, that's the problem there. It's
you
not
got
that,
one well.
oh, it'll pull water out of the ground. That's not the problem.
We pull bacteria tests on it every month, and most of the time they pass. There is sometimes that well will have a hit, we'll shock it, or the county will shock it, and we'll re-pull it, and it'll come back good. But yeah, there is one well that actually pumps more water, but we don't use it.
Right.
Unless we need to because of the color.
I got you. Okay. Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So what do you know about the drilling that they did earlier this year where the well caved in? I mean, can you talk about that any? Did that affect our wells?
I don't know as far as, like, I was out there obviously checking the plant, so I saw them out there. I don't know how much deeper they went. I don't know if we were pumping any more water. I know that it seems like used to, it would, you get some iron bacteria on that pump and the pump would start slowing down how much it's pumping. It doesn't seem like it's doing that like it used to. But as far as the quality and stuff, I mean, that well hardly, I don't know if it's ever had to fail bacteria tests each month. So we pull those each month and take those in, yeah.
I was out there when I was out there. We were able to get, I forgot how many feet deeper, 50?
About 20.
Here, maybe, okay, so
About 20.
yeah, it was at least that. The quality of the water, as far as like the color, might have been like marginally. It was about the same. I did, yeah. You or Kevin had mentioned that to me too. It seemed like maybe some, whether it was iron or whatever, maybe got marginally
Well,
better.
it start pumping slower, just over time. We get caught up, start pumping slower. It doesn't seem like it's doing
It's a
that
little
like it
better.
used to. But that water quality was better on that well anyways. But like they were saying, when you got a bunch of rain, even that well's gonna show more color, so kind of depends, but.
So that's the well we're using now. That didn't
Correct, yeah.
That didn't have any detrimental effect.
No, it did not have a visual. Yeah, that's that. We use both of them, but try to only use that one unless we need them. So.
And was there any suggestions for improving the quality of the water on the other well that you just mentioned was a little worse?
I mean, the only thing you could do with your current plant is change the media. Like you said, grease is gonna last a lot longer. Carbon, it gets spent, it's spent. So you're gonna be going through that much more frequently.
And that's what our filters are now, carbon.
You have a green sand for iron removal, and you have carbon for organic removal.
And the carbon replaced coconut filters.
Well, it was a coconut carbon is what it was.
Okay.
Before. So it's a carbon. And when that was changed out, I mean, it's beautiful, but it only lasts so long, it's gonna need to change out again. So it's definitely expense that you would have continually if you cut.
And if I'm not mistaken, back when I don't know, I think it was Mr. Stacy Coward, I think was the utility director.
Right.
The reason they went to the cheaper carbon was because they were going to switch out the green sand and put in other materials.
So there was material delivered to the plant, and then it was decided, honestly, through a conversation I had with somebody, it was not going to do what they were being told it was going to do. The county was being told it was going to do. So I told the county that they got credit back for that. But yes, they were looking at different ways, different media to change the green sand to and keep the carbon polishing.
The Kevin Johnson, who worked for the county, and then I think before he went to work for you guys, I think he was kind of in between. He came here and did a presentation, and he talked about doing like a torpedo test and going down deeper and getting better water samples, or seeing if samples were better water. Is that an option for that second well that we're not using, or you know?
Yeah, I'm not familiar with
Okay.
all that. Like I said, we're talking about just the places of where your well is, where your wells are, the direct infiltration of surface water. I mean, I would hate to say this would work.
Right.
I
And
would not want to say anything.
I remember the presentation. I just don't remember if it addressed both wells or
It was
one.
just one. It would have just been one, and I don't. It's definitely before he worked with us.
Right.
But I don't remember the time frame of it. But it was all about that well too. It's the one that we primarily use.
Thank you.
Mr. Long, kind of follow up what Todd was talking about. When, in our part of the world here, whenever you're trying to get better water, you might can. You might can get better water by going deeper. Typically, that's not the case. Deeper you go, you'll change out one constituent problem for another constituent problem. We've had some luck in packing off zones, but in our part of the world, that really typically doesn't work either because our limestone here is so porous. So we can't really block off the zone to be able to keep the water from above and below from doing that. So that you know that. The other thing I wanted, you were talking about grants. The last improvements you got to the water plant, we did do those years ago. That's the filter that you have now. That's the building you have out there now. And some other improvements that was done. That was done with the CDBG grant. That was the last. After that, the town census data changed. So just let you know, you don't qualify anymore because your socioeconomic status here in the town has improved from what it was. At that time, you qualified for CDBG because the majority of the citizens in the town were below 50% threshold. Since then, census data has shown that the town has improved, got other developments, a lot of subdivisions over here on the east side of town going in. So that has shifted. Now you would only be eligible on CDBG for any neighborhoods that feel that, so that would be targeted to a neighborhood. So I couldn't do anything or did any money on CDBG side at that point. So I want you to know that. So that does limit you on those things. Those are great grants to get for doing utility projects. They love to fund those. But if you were to get it, as a matter of fact, that's kind of what we talked about this part of town over here for expanding into that. We would use a CDBG grant for that area there because we couldn't do it over here off of Wilson Springs and that area there.
Right.
So,
Thank you.
okay.
Thank you. All right, floor is open for a motion to adjourn. Or no, I think I made the motion, didn't I?
You bet.
Yeah,
That's the last second.
All right, all in favor, say aye. All right, say nay. Passes unanimously. We can take a 10 minute